simply disembarked. No gates barred his entry. No gatekeepers demanded immigration documents or subjected him to rigorous interrogations. By the time Lee Chi-yet arrived in San Francisco, however, new laws had severely limited Chinese immigration into the United States. The Chinese Exclusion Act, passed in 1882, barred all Chinese laborers from entering the country for 10 years and prohibited Chinese immigrants from becoming naturalized citizens. It expressly allowed only a few specific classes of Chinese to continue to immigrate to the United States. While laborers were prohibited, merchants, teachers, students, diplomats, and travelers were exempt from exclusion. Court cases later initiated by the Chinese in America secured the rights of families of merchants and native-born citizens of the United States to apply for admission or readmission into the country as well. A product of the anti-Chinese movement that had begun in the West, the Exclusion Act marks the first time in American history that the United States barred a group of immigrants because of its race and class. The act also set the terms for the first large-scale deportation of an immigrant group. Later legislation renewed and strengthened the original act, and the exclusion of Chinese was made a permanent part of U.S. immigration policy until its repeal in 1943. Thus, when Lee Chi-yet sailed into San Francisco, immigration to the United States was no longer an uncomplicated matter. His ship, the SS Korea, was met by a corps of uniformed U.S. immigration officials. While most non-Chinese immigrants were allowed to disembark after only a cursory examination, all new and some returning Chinese immigrants were rounded up and ferried to the 8-year-old immigration station on Angel Island, located in the middle of the San Francisco Bay. Once on the island, Lee and the other Chinese were escorted by guards for thorough medical examinations and interrogations. Chinese immigrants were believed to be contaminated with parasitic diseases and other ailments considered dangerous and contagious. They were also suspected of using false papers and identities to evade the exclusion laws. Grandfather was subjected to a particularly humiliating physical examination as part of government authorities' attempts to prove or disprove that he was indeed the age he claimed to be. He was stripped naked, and physicians meticulously examined his teeth, skin, hair, sexual organs, and bones, and noted their findings in his immigration file. While immigrants were undergoing their medical examinations, immigrant inspectors searched their suitcases, trunks, and other possessions and stored them away. Personal letters and other belongings thought to be important to the case at hand were frequently confiscated. The Chinese were then sent to the crowded detention barracks to await further investigation. Returning immigrants usually did not have to wait too long, especially if their papers were in order. But Lee Chi-yet was a new arrival, and his admission into the country depended upon his ability to prove that he was exempt from the exclusion laws. A farmer all of his life, Grandfather did not qualify as one of the exempt classes, so he had purchased papers from another immigrant who agreed to claim him as his son. This paper-son system was a common strategy that had evolved among the Chinese in response to the restrictive parameters of the exclusion laws. In order to immigrate to the United States, Grandfather gave up his identity as Lee Chi-yet and became Yi Shuning, son of merchant Yi Yuk-ha. With his new identity came a new family history that he studied and memorized, including the names, ages, whereabouts, and other details of his mother, 2 brothers and 1 sister, his grandparents, and aunts and uncles. The real test came when both father and son were called before immigration officials and subjected to the extensive interrogations that had become routine over the course of the government's enforcement of the exclusion laws. Interviewed separately, they were asked detailed questions about their family and village life and their departure for America. "How many rows in your home village?" asked Inspector A.S. Hemstreet on July 10, 1918. "Who lives in the 3rd house from the head of the village? Give the names of husband, wife, and children who all live there." In total, the inspector asked Grandfather 145 questions. Fortunately, his answers agreed with his paper father's for the most part, and Grandfather was released from Angel Island after a stay of 2 weeks. The difference between Moy Dong-ki's pre-exclusion arrival in the United States and Lee Chi-yet's experience illustrate the enormous effects that the exclusion laws had on Chinese immigrants.